pointed. We've got some guys that want to kind of do things their own way, which ends up backfiring for us. We were atrocious in defensive transition, trying to get back. I thought the game was comfortable. We got it up to about 16-point lead, and then we refused to get back with any kind of sense of urgency. So it's a little bit of a false sense of security. I'm pleased with where we are, certainly at 8-2. I'm not sure I would have predicted that, but I just know that some of our biggest deficiencies right now are also San Diego State and Kentucky's bread and butter, and it's going to get ugly here pretty quick if we don't figure some things out. And we did have a good practice, a spirited practice, and watch some film with a bunch of the different guys and watch film collectively. But it's, we've got to be in grind mode defensively to get our butt back and to sit down in the stance and to guard the ball collectively and together and connected. And then when a shot goes up, finish it off. And I just thought we were kind of running in mud a little bit on Saturday. It was kind of a odd vibe. It wasn't a great crowd with that expansive arena and an afternoon game. So but it's going to be on, and we've got to get better. I'm pleased to get through where we are.
Right.
If you think about it. We've got to get some guys healthier, but we've had some good stretches of playing some really good basketball, and we're just gonna, as I mentioned in post-game comments, that in Vegas there's plenty of poker, and we've got some new stakes that we're about to step into, and we've won a little bit of cash, to use that poker analogy, on maybe a smaller stakes table.
Yeah, your blinds are going up.
Yeah, our blinds are going up, and our competition, we're going to be playing against some of those poker players that you find in Vegas that do that for a living. So we got to figure it out. We've got to have a sense of urgency. It's not going to be perfect. This is a team, Kentucky, that's loaded, and so there's a sense of urgency. And I feel good. We got through finals. Man, I think we got 10 guys with all A's and B's at last report, and not everybody's in there.
Nice.
So we're about close to 70% of the team that really hit it out of the park academically. Scotty McBurn, our film guy, just welcomed the baby boy. I did everything I could to have Larry in the name, but they weren't going for it.
Not even Lawrence?
No.
You couldn't get Lawrence even in there?
No, it's Bodie John, which is kind of
Bodie
cool.
John McBurn?
Yeah, Bodie John McBurn. Sounds like a stud, doesn't it?
No wonder Scotty looked so stressed the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I thought it was just watching all that Kentucky tape and getting that stuff ready for you, but now it was. I didn't realize the baby was this close.
Yeah, and I just got off the phone with him, and it's fortunate because we're heading out on the road, and to have that, the baby was born at 9-something yesterday morning, and so we're in a kind of a perfect slot for the kind of workload he has to be able to get Carly, his wife, home and get her situated tomorrow, and then he'll meet up with us in Vegas. But it really was about his perfect timing, but it's great to have another little character added to the family. So,
attaboy, Scotty. Congratulations to you and Carly on the little baby not named Larry.
No.
Which is probably
I'm
okay.
going to call him Larry anyway.
Call him Little Larry.
But it's Bodie John. Bodie, a ski name, I think.
Yeah, Bodie Miller.
Yeah, around here, that's a pretty good name.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like a little athlete?
Yeah, Bodie John.
Bodie John.
Call him BJ.
BJ.
BJ McBurn. There we go. Yeah, he already sounds like a basketball or a skier
or
something like that. So another new member to the Utah basketball family. I know it wasn't all wine and roses on Saturday. Were there some things you did like about what happened on Saturday? Anything you took out of that Weber game you liked?
Well, I thought we did a pretty good job on Harding.
Yeah.
Overall, we tried to make his.
He got most of his late and a lot of it at the foul line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had breakdowns again. So as I watched it, I mean, certainly I enjoyed the win. It's tough. It's finals are hard, and then they have a whole week. But there wasn't a whole lot of positive stuff. I thought we were really lackadaisical running our offense. We did have some possessions where we really shared the ball. But man, it was pretty porous. So hopefully, the guys got a dose of it, and we can turn the corner.
How much do you feel like you missed a guy like Ryland Jones? I mean, Ryland's kind of been the glue guy, running your team, getting everybody around, running your pick and roll so well. I mean, was that a game where you looked at it and you said it would have been a lot different if Ryland was out there?
Well, yeah, and you remind me that. Our coaches reminded me that this morning. But our job whether it's foul trouble, Ryland could play and be in foul trouble.
Right.
You just okay. So a man's down. Everybody better contribute a certain percentage more rather than less. I mean, and defensively in transition, that's where it was really glaring because Ryland typically is the first. We always try to get our guards, specifically point guard, to stop the ball. Right. And the other night it was just how not to get back in transition. And I thought, he does bring a certain amount of moxie to our offense, and that's a valid point. But I'm just at this point I'm kind of a half glass half empty kind of guy, and hopefully we can get Ryland back in the mix to help us. But the other guys need to step it up for sure.
We will leave the Weber game in the rearview mirror then and not dwell on that one anymore. But we will look ahead to Kentucky, and we will look ahead a little bit to San Diego State. Obviously Kentucky's first, but San Diego State coming up on Saturday. Just a reminder, for the Wednesday night's game from down at T-Mobile Arena is a 9 o'clock Mountain Time start. It's 8 o'clock Vegas time. So come home from work, get a little power nap in, and then Jimmy and I will have the broadcast for you beginning at 9 o'clock from T-Mobile Arena. Our broadcast today being brought to you by Anheuser-Busch. Game days, always better with a little Bud Light at your pregame. Keep it crisp, Utah fans, and please drink responsibly with Bud Light. Take a time out. We'll come back on the other side, pass out our weekly awards, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Kentucky Wildcats. John Calipari's team ranked number 6 in the country. We'll do that next on the Coaches Show, presented by Smith's from Learfield IMG College. Larry H. Miller dealerships. If you need a car, visit LHMauto.com. It's as easy as click it, get it, and drive it from the Larry H. Miller dealerships, driven by you, Bill Riley, Larry Krystkowiak, on the Coaches Show tonight, brought to you by Smith's. Utah plays Kentucky on Wednesday. We'll get to that game in a minute. We've got to pass out our player and sub of the week this week. So fire away, young man. Who are you going with your player of the week?
I think Timmy's probably the candidate again.
Yeah,
He's
he had
our
19.
only guy in double figures, and not that the offense was everything, but pretty dialed in defensively, with the exception of our defensive transition, but did a good job functionally and made some good passes to some guys. We had some really good possessions that he kind of got started. And, he's proven to be a real legitimate post threat that's given some teams, do they play him straight up or not? And then obviously, the catching closeouts and driving, getting the ball into the paint is good for us. So he keeps leading, and was the player of the week in our conference the week before, and it's hard to sustain that kind of focus. And Weber was ready for him, had a bunch of guys, and he kind of picked his opportunities to score and got out in transition and was really solid, I thought, start to finish.
Yeah, so Timmy will be our innovative player, or our team player of the week, brought to you by University of Utah Health. Visit them online at uofuhealth.org. You tell me, it felt like maybe Timmy and some of the other guys early in the game attacking the basket were expecting maybe a whistle or two, and the referees seemed to be letting them play underneath, and they had to adjust as the game went along to playing maybe a little bit more through contact to get some of that going. Did you see that too?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that credit goes to Weber, and we saw that in a bunch of their tape. Weren't a big shot blocking team, although Timmy did get a couple of his shots blocked by perimeter guys. But they're really a good position wall type of team. The play in particular that I was thinking of was Booth in transition.
Yeah.
And thought he was going in for a layup, and I still thought it was a foul. But they do a good job of coaching that and being real physical. Maybe the contact is coming down below, but the arms are up, and it looks like it's a legal guarding position. So was hard for our guys to deal with. I thought Brandon Carlson had some opportunities to score where he kind of got out of whack, and our perimeter guys on penetration. Weber, they do a good job. That's the one thing about their team, is they swarmed to penetration. They forced us to give the ball up. They did a good job with their closeouts, and we didn't shoot the ball well. I mean, we were miserable, 20% from three, and didn't do a great job around the rim. And I think the thing I take away, you asked the previous question, is, when you don't shoot the ball that well, and to be able to win the ball game, I think is key. I thought we were pretty dialed in a lot of the defense. As long as we weren't talking about the transition, and managed to get some good stops. But the reality in that film is Weber missed a bunch of open shots. And I'm looking at guys coming in, beating us off the dribble and coming to the rim. And Kentucky and San Diego State and Oregon and those teams, they're not missing those shots.
Right.
So we got to do a much better job of protecting the paint with all the teams coming up. We got to do a much better job at the point of attack in our pick and roll coverage and all those types of things.
Who's our sub of the week this week?
Boy, I really liked Mickey's energy again.
Yeah.
I think this is a repeat from the week before.
He just missed a double-double. He had 9 and 9, I think.
Yeah, and was scrapping, and he's not 100. He's not probably not 80%. He's got some knee issues, but man, he was scrapping. Really a clinic when it comes to his pick and roll coverage defensively and keeping guys in front of him. The last couple of weeks, you've seen that where he's got a lot of energy. He was on the floor getting second shots, plenty of those to go around, and so I think he's starting to round into form, as we talked about off air earlier. He's a guy as a coach that we got to get him more shots. I think he's shooting 76% or 74% from the field, so doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that we got to figure out a way to get it to him more often. He does a great job in and around the basket with some second shots, and we are going to need all hands on deck with these bigs moving forward. It's been a very inconsistent practice session, and we haven't really, it's a lot about trust, but you got to remember plays, you got to remember coverage, you got to communicate, you got to be really physical. As we move forward, as we head into some of these bigger teams, we're not going to be able to play small So we're going to have to ground it out a little bit and get more out of our 5 spot for sure.
He also showed off his range, too. He knocked down an NBA 3 from the top of the key, too.
Yeah, Mickey can shoot it. I mean, there was a session this summer where he hit 27 in a row from the top of the circle. We had a little shooting game going on. And I've suggested to him to really focus as a 4-man. There's a lot of basketball being played with him in the middle third of the court.
Right.
And let's just spend all of your time seeing if you can become a good shooter in that middle of the floor, free throw extended, even out to 3, and he's 2 for 5 on the season. It's just a little bit of confidence, I think, for him. He's one of the guys, probably more than anybody, that I see starting to figure this out, and he's not thinking as much, and some of his natural reflexes are starting to come into play, certainly on the defensive end, but he seems more and more comfortable on the offensive end as well. So, we've always said it's never easy being a freshman, but he seems to be on a little bit faster curve than some of the other guys.
So he'll be our Subway Sub of the Week. Mikhail Yantunen will be that guy for us this week. Subway. Buy that Subway footlong of the day. Get chips, 2 cookies, and a 20-ounce drink for free only at Subway. So the Kentucky Wildcats, you played at Rupp Arena a year ago, and you're playing at the Huntsman Center Wednesday. Oh, no, you're not playing at the Huntsman Center on Wednesday night.
No, not your traditional home and home.
How did that come about?
Well, a couple years ago, Andy was on the road, and as we all know, you need these top-tier games for a lot of reasons. I think they help you when you get to conference, and they certainly help you in the selection room. They offered to play at Lexington and then Madison Square Garden, and we kind of nixed that idea and thought if we could get into T-Mobile. They still travel well. Kentucky's fans travel well, but I felt like we'd have an opportunity to get down there and travel, and it's a facility that we got to start playing better at. T-Mobile is a place that I don't believe we've had a win since they moved the Pac-12 tournament there. So there's something funky in that building that we have to try to correct, and Kentucky's played 1 neutral site game and 8 home games. Their first game of the season was in that, the tournament with the top 4 schools.
Right.
Michigan State and them and Kansas and Duke. And then they've reeled off 8 straight home games. So they've been pretty comfortable in the confines of Lexington, and this will be another neutral site game. We've bounced around a little bit more, but we got to be ready to go, man.
Yeah, and by the way, they also play there Saturday. I think they're staying out in Las Vegas for a few days because I think they play in another classic on Saturday against Ohio State or somebody there in Las Vegas.
Louisville, maybe.
Yeah, so it's I think it's convenient for them. They're going to be in Vegas for 3 or 4 days.
Well, Coach Cal likes Vegas. I enjoy Vegas, but I can't stay there more than 2 nights. So.
Well, you get to stay there a little longer. Well, hopefully you'll stay there longer in March.
Yes.
More than 2 days in March.
Yep.
It's been 2 days for the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, we've run into the wrong team, Oregon, a couple times too. That's somewhat of a buzzsaw. So that bye hasn't been great for us. But we know what we need to do against this Kentucky team, and we got to stay in it. And there are a few chinks in their armor, and they're just, as Coach Cal's teams go, they improve drastically with the young kids on their roster. It's funny, I was doing a phone call with one of the beat writers there yesterday, and he was expecting me to express some kind of sympathy for Coach Cal and having to coach all these young kids all the time.
Did you tell him to look at your roster, too?
Yeah, well, he said this is one of the first times all year that we're actually older than our opposition because Kentucky's usually younger. Yeah. But I'm enjoying coaching these guys, and there's a lot to be said about that, the youth and the exuberance of them. But there are a bunch of young kids running around between these 2 teams this next game.
Well, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back and talk a little bit about Kentucky's personnel. There's a couple of faces that are the same from a year ago, but a lot of new faces, talented faces, but new faces coming back at Kentucky basketball. We'll do that straight ahead here on the Coaches Show, presented by Smiths from Learfield IMG College. Visit Pepsi and Mountain Dew Code Red, proud official soft drink of Utah basketball. Pepsi and Mountain Dew Code Red, go Utes. So Kentucky on Wednesday night, of course, an old arch nemesis of the University of Utah. Gotten them down through the years, including 21 years ago. Got them last year in Lexington. They turn over quite a bit. They don't get many 3- and 4-year players at Kentucky anymore. They've kind of gotten in that one-and-done, two-and-done cycle. But I think one name that will be familiar from a year ago is Ashton Hagans. He's a player that was back. He played against you guys a year ago, but a lot of new faces. P.J. Washington gone, Reed Travis gone, Tyler Hero gone. These guys are all playing at the next level now.
Well, thank goodness. I was looking at the stats, and they had 4 guys that killed us a year ago. They were 30, I believe it was 38 points in transition and off of our turnovers to our 9 in transition, and they're just too good. You know, there's a lot of clips that I did over the weekend that they're actually scoring the ball with 27 seconds on the shot clock, and that's after makes and misses. You better be back. And
if I recall correctly, and again, you got to protect the basketball, but I think when you guys were in the half court, you were pretty good defensively in the half court against them, but you gave them, as you said, 38 points in transition, run out points, points off turnovers. You just can't defend those.
You can't. And Reed Travis, I don't know if you mentioned him from a year ago.
Yeah.
He was a load in the post for us. So that's one thing. You have to take them out, and we've got a nice little defensive transition. I told our guys one of our biggest Achilles heel has been defensive transition. That is the absolute strength of Kentucky Wildcats, and so it's a good opportunity for a couple days to work on it. We need to push through this, and we're going to send multiple guys back and get a stop, because the beginning of an offensive possession for them and the end of that offensive possession are that's where they're really good. It's scoring early. I mean, they get into the free throw line. How about this? 3 guys on their team shoot. Between 3 guys, they shoot 60% of their free throw attempts, and they all shoot 90. So, I mean, those are points that you can't afford to foul them for a number of reasons, because they're really good there, but it also puts us in harm's way. So, and then when they do miss shots, Bill, they're not shooting the ball great right now from the perimeter. When they do miss them, they've got some guys that go and eat some glass, and they're really good offensive rebound guys. I do think some of the stuff in between, we have a much better chance, higher probability of getting some stops.
Well, they were that team a year ago. That's kind of how they've been. And San Diego State has traditionally been that team. They don't always shoot it great, but, man, they'll just go up and get it off the glass and put it back. If I'm not mistaken, a year ago, their 3, 4, and 5 spots are what really hurt you. It was Reed Travis, P.J. Washington, and the kid that's now in the NBA, Kelton Johnson, I believe was his name, who shot the lights out. It wasn't so much the 1 and the 2. I'm curious, as you've watched them this year, are they stronger up front again, or are they stronger in the backcourt this year?
Well, that's the thing that's interesting. They've had a bunch of different starting lineups. They've gone a little bit smaller, bigger, but the other night, Montgomery, a week ago, he had 25 or 26 points. He hadn't even been starting. So when you're dealing with this type of team, there's a bunch of talent. And so if you put, it's not like some teams you play where you say, okay, this guy's kind of a no-guard guy. Let's be, helping your teammates. I mean, at any point, they can step up. But I think overall, Higgins,
Ashton Hagans.
Yeah, he's a guy that in the last 5 games it's almost 10 assists a game and 2-point-something turnovers. So he's the guy that's getting a bunch of other people's shots. He's also stepped up in games and scored 20, 25 points a game. Super quick, pick-and-roll player, kind of the head of their snake. But Nick Richards is their leading scorer on the season. He's their 5-man.
He came off the bench a year ago.
He's a beast on the glass. Every time a teammate shoots it, he thinks it's a miss, and he's going to make you work. So he's a high volume athlete. Trying to get him extra possessions, and there's plenty of guards. Quickly, guys in between that can fill it out. So a little bit like last year, you identify a couple guys, but then you have 2 or 3 other guys stepping up. The whole key is the transition part of it and keeping them out of our paint. If they get, which they will, get into our paint, here we come with some kind of help, and then all of a sudden it's on with, like you said, where everybody's trying to get that missed shot. So we've got to do a good job moving our feet and playing without fouling.
Have you gotten a sense the guys are excited about a matchup like this? I mean, you've played some good teams. Let's not get it wrong, but this is Kentucky, and this is the number 6 team in the country. A little bit more juice you expect this week?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I could feel it in practice today. This game's not nearly about any kind of, like we played UC Davis, you played BYU and even Weber, a bunch of different plays that you try to remember, different actions. Kentucky runs about 3 things. They just run it really well. And the old joke is it's not nearly as much about the X's and O's as it is about the Jimmies and Joes. And they're just supreme athletes that are going to try to beat us, and it's got to be a little bit of a playground mentality with a few things to remember strategically, but we just got to get back and be a great wall team at the rim, try to get some point of attack charges. Those are big plays. Watch the Evansville game where they beat them in Kentucky, and they just scrapped. They just stay in it, and they are human, and we'll have a chance, but we got to dial it in.
That's Kentucky on Wednesday night, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, tip time from Las Vegas and T-Mobile Arena. But that's not the end of it this week for Utah. They've got to play a good, very good, in fact, undefeated San Diego State team on Saturday. I expect them to still be undefeated. They play a game this week, but it's against a lesser opponent. So I think they're one of 4 undefeated teams left in college basketball out of 345 teams. So we'll talk a little bit about Brian Dutcher's team when we get back, an old Mountain West foe, right here on the Coaches Show from Learfield IMG College. Fresh. We come to you every Monday night from the Utah Basketball facility here, the Huntsman Basketball Building in the offices of Utah Basketball. We're hanging out tonight, me and Larry, talking Utah basketball. We already told you a little bit about Kentucky coming up on Wednesday night. Then on Saturday, you guys will turn back around and go down and play in Los Angeles at Staples Center in a little bit of a classic. The Southern California team's hosting USC and San Diego State, both playing games down there, and you guys have the old Mountain West Conference foe in San Diego State. Last time you played them, Steve Fisher was still coaching them. Now it's Brian Dutcher. I think it was that opening day of college basketball down in their arena a few years ago. It was a great venue, great arena. This one will be at Staples Center.
I think the first year we played at their place, and then didn't we beat them at our place the following year?
I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and it was that Midnight Madness stuff where they went around the clock.
Exactly.
I remember playing an afternoon game at San Diego State.
That was the afternoon game.
That was about 42-38, if I remember that game right.
Yeah, James Naismith loved that game. It was like you were taking it out of the peach baskets that day. Yeah, that offense. And Paul Westhead would have never watched that game.
No.
But yeah, and then you came back and you beat him the next year. But Steve Fisher was coaching then, and now Brian Dutcher. This is either his second year or third year now as head coach. But stylistically, they're kind of the same team because Dutcher was the longtime assistant for Fisher, so the style of play isn't going to change, and they always have good athletes down there. And right now they're 12-0, or 10. I should say 10-0.
They're playing really well, and they've got a lot of different facets. Malachi Flynn is a transfer from Washington State, who's a terrific player, point guard. Mike Mitchell is a wing that we recruited. They got great size in the post, a couple of guys that defend and rebound, and yeah, they're clicking. They really are, and there's a lot of similarities between they and Kentucky. You know, it's not going to be like a completely different animal when we go 3 days later and try to play San Diego State at the Staples Center. So a lot of the theme for this week, and it probably sets up pretty well because it's the same theme that we're going to have for league play. You know, so basically league starts now in a 20-game league. We've got 10 out of the way, and we've got 10 to go before Vegas, and it's going to really check to see where we are finishing up our preseason schedule and on a couple neutral site games, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be fun. I think it's good for our team right now. We need a little getaway, so we'll spend a few nights in Vegas. Then we're going to bus from Vegas to L.A. and have a little team bonding deal, and then a few days there, get a chance to check out an NBA game, I know, and we'll undoubtedly cross paths with Kuzma and then get ready for a little Christmas.
That'll be a lot of fun, and Kuz is having a great third year. Now, it's weird to say. I mean, isn't that weird? 3 years now in the NBA. It seems like he was just here. Time flies.
Isn't that right? That's so true.
Time absolutely flies, and those
so true.
Lakers look good, too.
Yeah, they're not bad.
With LeBron and Anthony Davis.
That's what happens when LeBron doesn't make the playoffs. He comes back, he's a little more charged up.
He's a little like the Incredible Hulk. Don't make me mad.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like me when I'm mad. He even said the other day, he said, hey, I'm going to start play as much as I could possibly play because I'm not going to do the load management unless I absolutely – if I'm hurt, I will. But otherwise, he said, you know, there's kids out there and people that buy tickets. They want to see me. I don't know how many years I've got left playing. So
that's a novel idea.
Yeah, isn't it?
He's also built a little differently than most of us. So he's kind of like a tank.
You coached against him, didn't you, when you were in Milwaukee? I mean, I tell people you can't really – television doesn't do a lot of the NBA players justice, but there's certain guys that are kind of freaks of nature like Shaq and, you know, and LeBron that television, it just – you have to see those guys out on the floor. And it had to be weird for you playing in a time in a league, and then you're looking at this guy and you're like, there weren't many guys, if any guys, like this when I played.
No, it's a completely different animal. It's interesting. You know, I was always, obviously, with my time and the era that I played, Michael Jordan was the guy.
Right.
And nothing's ever going to change that. It's like growing up with music or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what you hear. And I used to hear the argument about LeBron and Michael and, you know, all those years. Like, there is no way in the world. And I've gained so much more respect watching LeBron play and what he's done and how he's carried different teams. And his game has evolved from not being able to hit a three and not being able to deal with double teams. it's just been unbelievable to watch.
And he's done it now 16 years, and he's missed very little, if any, time in his career. I mean, there's a lot of miles on that odometer. I know last year he missed the end of the year, but that's really been it for him. And he's been doing it at a high level for an awfully long time. And in that league, you may fly charters and stay at nice hotels, but you're playing a lot of games and a lot of back-to-backs.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to play at that level consistently.
No.
That's why there's very few guys who do it.
No, and people always say, well, man, if Michael could play now in this era where there's a lot more freedom of movement, he would have really killed it. And I agree with that. I think he probably would have, and maybe even would have had another year or two on his career. But I used to be able to knock Mike down. Like when Mike came to the basket, and I was going to make sure that I'd never part of one of those photos where you're getting dunked on, and there wasn't any going to check the monitor kind of deal. You could, and boom, he's laying on the ground. I've met LeBron and talked to him and seen him, and you ain't knocking him down.
No.
So as much as Michael might have benefited by playing in this era, I think there weren't going to be like that tough physical nature. I think LeBron would have actually probably been better than Mike back then too, because his body and everything was more suited for it. So, kudos to him. Is Bronny's growing up and freshman in high school, I guess, right now. Yeah. So. No, he's a guy that you can cheer for. There's only been one time that I was disappointed, and it's the little deal, and I'm not sure it was his idea with the fiasco about taking his talent to South Beach. But I think even when you watch media-wise and interviews and different things, I got an awful lot of respect for him.
It was awfully good, and Kuz is one of his teammates. We got to take a break. We're done at 6:53 tonight. We got Utah women's basketball after us. We got to. Coaches Show. Pac-12 play starts in a couple of weeks. It's right after Christmas. The Oregon schools are in. I know you watch basketball going on around the country. Top of the Pac-12 is playing pretty well right now. Arizona got beat by Gonzaga the other day, but Oregon had a really nice win up at Michigan. They look like they've got things clicking with Peyton Pritchard, who was named Pac-12 Player of the Week this week. But top of the conference looks pretty good right now.
Yeah, and I think Colorado's playing well record-wise. I think we've accomplished what a directive kind of from the conference and the league and the barometer. One of the litmus tests that you typically get a lot of respect from around the country is winning 3 out of 4 preseason games.
Right.
And last time I checked, we were at like 77% of the preseason games, and there's another week or so before. So we still have some work to do, but that's usually a pretty good indication, of how the league is doing. I think Oregon State's playing really well. They've got a couple of key guys that have a lot of reps there. USC's playing well. UCLA kind of on and off, but
Stanford's been playing well too.
Stanford's one of the surprises for sure. So, yeah, it's going to be a good league. And then when we get into league, I think we're talking, trying to get a half of our league in the NCAA tournament, then we can kind of cannibalize each other and beat each other. And you've got 4 or 5 teams in that top 50 part of the ledger already. So the competition will be good for our league. And I think there's been some, the Arizona-Gonzaga game was a great game for about 30 minutes. And then Gonzaga got them, and then I turned it off. And missed. They were up 16.
Yeah, I did
turned
too.
it off,
and I turned it back,
and
it was a 1-point game late. They had to make some free throws to hold off Arizona.
Yeah, so that I missed the fireworks on that one. But there's a lot of talent, I think, in our conference, and we've got some great new coaching additions. So, yeah, it's not unlike most years. It'll be interesting and fun.
The Oregon schools, by the way, open up Pac-12 play in Salt Lake City right after the first of the year on the 2nd and I believe the 4th. Take a quick timeout. Back to wrap it up next. Final thoughts as we head toward Vegas and Kentucky Wednesday night next year on the Coaches Show, presented by Smiths from Learfield IMG College. show, Utah and Kentucky on Wednesday night. We won't talk about San Diego State because you got to get through Kentucky first. You'll get down to Vegas, have a little practice time on the court, and shoot around on Wednesday morning. But what's the biggest thing when you guys are matching up? What's the message you give the guys heading into the game on Wednesday night?
We're just going to have to be good at a lot of different phases. You got to be dialed in from the beginning. You got to get through the possession. That's just defensively. And then they're one of the elite defensive teams in the country with their length.
Right.
So you got to be dialed in to earn a good shot. And this was part of Kentucky a year ago. I had flashbacks. We missed a lot of open shots.
Yep.
You can't beat Kentucky if you don't make open shots because you're not going to get that many open ones.
Evansville made a lot of their shots.
They did.
They did.
They sure did.
They were chippy defensively, and they made their shots. It's a good combination. I'll see you on Wednesday night.
Sounds good, buddy.
There you go. That's Larry Krystkowiak. We'll see you on Wednesday night. You can hear us 8 o'clock for the pregame show. Jim Soto and I will be courtside at T-Mobile, 9 o'clock for tip time. Coming up next, Lynn Roberts and the Utah women's basketball team trying to make it 7 in a row. They've got Providence next, right here from Learfield, IMG College.